Good evening, folks. This is Mr. Security, DW, Pastor Barry, Pastor Beanie, General Trouble, Secret Government Agent, Double O Banana, several lovely names. But I'm coming to you from Jonesboro, Arkansas, this fine Saturday night, October the 9th of 2021. I had a pretty good day. I got to sleep in. Been a busy week, and some stuff came up today. And, life is full of surprises. The only thing constant is change. And anyway, I had some time here tonight. It's been a busy day. Like I said, stuff going on. But this is called, in this devotional here tonight, Looking for the Messiah. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I've found the Messiah already. He's in my heart. I've found him. But I guess we'll take a closer look to see what Smith Wigglesworth says. We're going to continue reading. We did Matthew chapter 11, 1 to 11 in the last devotional. And here tonight we're going to do verses 12 through 24 in Matthew 11. And in verse 3 of Matthew 11 it says, "Are you the coming one, or do we look for another?" And that was the disciples of John the Baptist going to Jesus, sadly, and asking him, "Are you really the one?" Even though before that, Jesus arrived on the scene and John the Baptist said, "Behold, this is the one of God, the man of God, that I've been telling you about. He's here." But later on, the enemy got some doubt, maybe some fear and unbelief in John the Baptist. And so he needed some more confirmation that Jesus was exactly who John had previously declared that he was. Hard to believe, but I've seen people, all I can say is Christians are very changeable. They can say one thing yesterday, they can say something to you today, and then tomorrow they'll say something completely different. People are wishy-washy. They're not really certain what they believe, Man, it's just unbelievable how people can say they believe in something, and then later they change their mind and say, "No, that wasn't really God telling me that. God's telling me this." And then pretty soon they get down the trail and they realize, "No, this isn't what God really wants. He wants us to do that." Confusion is not of the enemy. And so I believe there's a lot of confusion out there. Unfortunately, a lot of Christians aren't grounded, so they don't know the Word enough. They don't know the voice of the Lord enough. They're not going to stay grounded, then they can be deceived. And deception is very real. Here in 2021, the enemy is really trying hard to keep people deceived. But, if you stay humble enough, seeking the Lord, there's a lot of signs, a lot of road signs that will show you that you're on the right path. And so anyway, looking for the Messiah, chapter 11, Matthew, let's go down to verse 12. It's all red letter stuff here. Let's take a look. Jesus says, "From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has forcefully advanced, and the strong take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to receive it, he is Elijah, who is to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. But to what shall I liken this generation? It is like children sitting in the markets calling to their friends, saying, 'We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge to you, and you did not mourn.' For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, 'Here is a gluttonous man, a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners, but wisdom is justified by her children.'" Now, I have a video on this teaching, Is Jesus Christ the friend of sinners? The answer is no, he's not. And you're hearing that, you think, "But I've been taught all my life that Jesus Christ is the friend of sinners." No, he's not. A sinner has no relationship with Jesus. How in the world can you call somebody a friend who you have absolutely no relationship with? It was the scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees calling Jesus gluttonous, a drunkard, that he has a demon, and that he is a friend of sinners, of which all of those things he was not. You have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ in order to be a friend of God. That's very simple for most people to understand, yet they go ahead and they declare Jesus Christ as a friend of sinners. He's friendly to the sinner because he wants the sinner to repent. Right? The doctor goes to those who are sick. But just because the doctor goes to the patient, that doesn't make them friends automatically. Many people can have relationships with doctors for years, but they can't always say that, hey, just because I go to this doctor and have for 20 years that he's my friend. There's a professional, like a doctor-patient professional bond there. It doesn't mean you're friends. You know each other, but it's on a different level. To be a friend of God, you have to have the Spirit of God in you. You have to have a relationship. So when they said Jesus Christ was the friend of sinners, he wasn't the friend of sinners. He was friendly to them. He was the doctor to the patient to win them over so they could become friends. So Jesus Christ is not the friend of the sinner. He is available to help them so they will come to him for the truth. But until there's relationship, they aren't a friend of God. Let's continue. Then he began to reprimand the cities where most of his mighty works were done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you. Capernaum, who is exalted toward heaven, will be brought down to Hades. For if the mighty works which have been done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say to you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom on the day of judgment than for you. And did you know that all these places that Jesus said, woe to you, these cities around the body of water there, they're not there today. They're gone. I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 places around that body of water that are still there today because Jesus hadn't cursed them. He's saying, I did mighty works before you, and you still didn't repent. But places like Sodom and Gomorrah, if I had come to them back in the time and shown them the signs, they would have believed and they would still be here today. So it's more shame on the people who saw the signs than those who didn't see the signs. That's what Jesus is saying. That's dangerous territory. I never want to hear Jesus say to me, woe to you for anything. That terrifies me. Looking for the Messiah. We got a short one here tonight. Smith Wigglesworth says, I want you to see how satanic power can work in the mind. Satan came to John when he was in prison. I find that Satan can come to any of us. Yes, absolutely. I told somebody today, Satan will always whisper to us. Satan is always going to whisper to us as long as we're alive. You're going to hear your own mind, you're going to hear the voice of Satan, and you're also going to hear the voice of God. That never changes. The question is, when Satan whispers to you, are you always going to know that it's him? If you know what God tells you to do, you say, yes, this is the right way, and you do it, and then you hear a voice later that says, no, I don't want you to do that. Now I want you to do this. And it kind of goes against everything that God just told you. There's confusion there. One of those voices is not God. That's all you have to know. It doesn't matter how many voices there are. If they're not coming into agreement with what God originally said, that means one of them, at least, is of Satan or it's of your fleshly mind. And it brings confusion. And we know that confusion, always remember, confusion is not of God. Confusion is of Satan. Every single time. If you don't understand something God tells you, he can explain it to you so you will understand. Satan wants you to be confused. Don't confuse Satan's voice with God's. And unfortunately here, today in this hour, so many people are mistaking the voice of Satan for the voice of God. They're listening to Satan when they used to listen to God all the time. I know someone who is no longer here. When I first met them, they were hearing the Lord so clearly, getting amazing words, so much stuff, just boom, 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 boom. God, God, God. Amazing, incredible work, words, encouragement, edification. And then in later years, it just sort of trickled down and then it just died off. It's just the words of confusion and stuff that didn't make sense. They started to listen to the voice of the enemy. Fortunately, that person is home with the Lord now. But it was just really sad to see how far they'd come. From hearing God's voice so clearly to just, boom, choosing to allow themselves to be deceived and confused, and then they started listening to the voice of the enemy, and that got them into some dangerous territory. It's really sad to see. It's almost, in a way, it's like an angel falling. That's the only thing I can compare it to. So anyway, he says, but I want to prove that we have a greater power than Satan's in imagination, in thought, in everything. Satan came to John the Baptist in prison and said to him, don't you think you have made a mistake? So we see even John the Baptist heard the voice of the enemy and he believed it. And I've never read this part of the devotional before, but I see that Smith Wigglesworth actually picked up on this. So isn't that amazing? So Satan said something to the effect, don't you think that you made a mistake? Here you are in prison. Isn't there something wrong with the whole business? After all, you may be greatly deceived about being a forerunner of the Christ. You see, when you bite a little bit of Satan's bait, he'll give you bigger pieces, and he will take you as far as he can take you if you're willing to submit to his wicked voice, his deceitful lies. He will take you to a place where you look around finally one day and say, how in the world did I possibly get to this place? I was over there where God wanted me, and now I'm so far away from that. How did I get here? And it happens to people. It's happened to me before in the past. But I thank God now that I hear him and his voice better now than I ever have before. And the proof is in the fruit. I find men who might be giants of faith, who might be leaders of society, who might rise to subdue kingdoms, Hebrews 11:33, who might be noble among princes, but they are defeated because they allow the suggestions of Satan to dethrone their better knowledge of the power of God. May God help us. John sent 2 of his disciples to ask Jesus, are you the Messiah? How could Jesus send those men back with a stimulating truth, with a personal, effective power that would stir their hearts to know that they had met him, about whom all the prophets had spoken? What would declare it? How would they know? How could they tell it? Jesus answered and said to them, go and tell John the things which you hear and see. The blind see and the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up and the poor have the gospel preached to them. Matthew 11:4-5. Basically, Jesus said, go back and tell John, my cousin, the fruit of this ministry that I am a part of is what will reveal to him that I am exactly who he knew that I was. And I am who I declare that I am. So, doubts got on John the Baptist, and Jesus told him what to tell him to relieve his mind, to kind of undo or unscrew what Satan was trying to screw up. And when they saw the miracles and wonders and heard the gracious words he spoke as the power of God rested upon him, they were ready to believe. Good word. The thought for today says, unless we are filled or divinely insulated with the power of God, we may be defeated by the power of Satan. It's a very sad thing to see people obeying God and then to be deceived and go off track, Fortunately, some people see the truth for what it is before it's too late, and then some people just keep going and they never get out of it. It's like they've gone into a ditch and they never get back on the road. It's a sad state of affairs, but these are the times we live in where deception runs rampant. So many people, even people who are in something great, they settle for that thing that is great, but they don't settle for what God's best is. And I've said that to somebody recently as well. Don't settle for something good. Don't even settle for something great with God. Always settle for God's best. And unfortunately, some people, it's going to be judgment day before they see the Lord tell them, look, I had you on the right path. I had the best for you, and you got off it, and you settled for something less than my best. But by then it's too late, and it's sad. But that's the reality. Guys, I hope you've had a great week, and we'll see you tomorrow in the next devotional.